to start by presenting an overview of what I think of as the phenomenon of problem and pathological gambling. And I want to introduce the mascot for gambling treatment. It is a turtle. Turtles are slow. And turtles must come out of their shell to get anywhere. Two things that gamblers need: slow down, stop, think. You do something that turtles don't do. Think. And also come out of their shell, become honest and open about their problem, and also to tell their significant other, their partner, their spouse, and maybe go to group meetings, come out of their shell and talk to others about their problem. In the United States, there are 48 states in the United States that have legal gambling. Every state except Utah and Hawaii. Utah is very religious, and Hawaii has tourism that does not need gambling. Come for tourism even though there's no gambling. 41 states have pari-mutuel gambling. Pari-mutuel is horse racing or dog racing. Or Jai-Alai, which is it's a Basque game which is bet on similar to horses and dogs. 38 states have lottery. Now, included in that are lotto, large prizes, daily numbers, which may be a 3-digit number. You bet on one of those digits. If you win, you get, let's say for $1, you would get $500 if you win. Also in lottery would be included scratch tickets. We call them paper slot machines. Little cardboard tickets that you scratch off. Like sometimes they look like bingo card. Sometimes they look like a slot machine with bells and sevens, everything on them. Video slot machines. Now, video slot machines are in 30 states. And some of these are operated by lotteries, some of them are privately operated, and some of them are operated by a Native American Indian tribe who run casinos. I live in a state where the state lottery runs video lottery terminals. There are 4,000 lottery terminals in 2 locations. One location has 2,500 lottery terminals. It is a racetrack. And the other location has 1,500 machines, video slot machines. And we are close to 2 casinos. It's a 45-minute drive to any casino, to one of these 2 casinos from anywhere in the state of Rhode Island. It's a very small state where I live. On the East Coast, near Boston. 28 out of the 50 states have casinos, and 22 casinos. These are locations with table games, like blackjack, roulette, craps, and 22 have off-track betting. Off-track betting is you bet. The races are not run there; they are run somewhere else. But you might have a video screen. You watch the race. You place your bet, like you have here. Gambling has been growing. The number of states with legalized gambling has increased over time, and the overall gross profit, or what the casinos call the win, has increased from $3.3 billion in 1974 to $68.7 billion in 2002. The 2003 figures will be coming out this month or next month. between 2001 and 2002, more volume, more money was spent in the casinos and the racetracks and lottery than just the increase was larger than the total amount in 1974. This is legal gambling. It doesn't include illegal gambling. It doesn't include internet gambling. It does not include gambling with a bookmaker, private gambling on sports. It does not include that. What kind of gamblers are there? I like to classify gamblers in these 5 categories. First, you have the casual social gambler. This person buys a lottery ticket maybe every now and then. Maybe 2, 3, 4 times a year might put money in a slot machine, or maybe less than once a month. They will maybe play cards, go to a casino, go to the racetrack, just casual. They don't really gamble all that much. Serious social gamblers, they gamble weekly or more often. I like to think of 4 times a month or more as a serious social gambler. For example, for a while I was betting the daily number, which is a lottery, every day for months. The number 542. But I went for a while I was a serious social gambler, but then gradually a casual social gambler. Now I only buy maybe a Powerball ticket, which is a large mega lottery, 5 or 6 times a year. Serious social gambler, also, these are people who gamble without problems. Then there are professional gamblers, and I like to think of them in terms of 3 categories. The entrepreneurs, these are the people who place, the bookmakers who take bets, the casino owners, the people who live in the state that actually benefit from the lottery but don't play it. Their taxes are lowered because they don't play the lottery. Because in most states in the United States, the lottery, the revenue goes right to the state. It doesn't go to a charity. Hustlers and cheats. Hustlers and cheats, these are people who gamble illegally, use illegal gambling strategies to make money. For example, a hustler will, if you shoot pool, they will say, "I'm bad, you're good." Or they will set up matches, they will set up games with people who they know are not as good as they are, and they don't play as well. A cheat is someone who plays cards and will deal not the top card, maybe the second card or the bottom card to the other players, or to another person in the same game who is a friend of his or hers. And another category of professional gambler, these are people who make money gambling, are handicappers. Handicappers are people who bet horses and sports, who understand the odds, who actually can make money at this, but there are very, very few. More of the people who are, quote, handicappers lose money. They think that they can make money, they can win, but in actuality they lose. Also, many of the hustlers who are cheating at different games. Maybe I hustle at pool, but then I go to the racetrack and I lose all the money that I hustled plus more. So I get in debt and I become a problem gambler. Second category of professional gambler, the handicapper, the percentage player. The percentage player is someone who understands the odds, the probabilities, particularly playing poker. They know that, for example, a certain hand will occur 1 in every 500 times. If they have this card and so many other cards are out, they know the probability of getting the cards they need. And they are actually looking at the cards in the poker game. And card counters Card counters are people who play blackjack, who are counting the face cards, basically the high and the low cards. The aces, they're counting the aces, and they're counting the kings, queens, jacks, and tens that are coming through as a way of keeping track and hopefully getting into a situation where the odds are now in their favor instead of in the casino's favor. Most people who try to count cards are failures at it and develop problems. So even though I have interviewed and I have had people in treatment who were bookmakers but became compulsive gamblers, who were casino owners, no, none of them that I know of. Many who are hustlers and cheats became problem gamblers and compulsive gamblers. Many handicappers, many percentage players, and many card counters. I might be a percentage player at poker. For example, a month ago, I had someone come in for treatment who was a percentage poker player who also played blackjack and was about $50,000 in debt. But if he just stuck to poker, he could win. He could make money. But he also played blackjack, and he lost. Problem gamblers. They tend to lose track of time while they're playing. They play longer than other players. They basically lose track of time and money. Time and money, those two things. They play longer than the other player. So if the best customers at the, for example, at the train station in Oslo, the people that are hanging out, the people that are playing there, the ones who play there the most often, their chance of becoming a problem gambler increase just with frequency of play. They have trouble quitting when they're ahead, and they have trouble quitting when they're losing. They play without breaks. They will have someone hold the machine for them, and they will leave, go to the bathroom, come back, and play that machine, and get angry if someone takes that machine from them, because it is my machine. And they use irrational thinking while playing. For example, my machine is irrational thinking. They will think that because the machine hasn't paid off in a long time, it is bound to win the next time. The gambler's fallacy. They're bound to win because the machine hasn't paid, or if it has been paying off quite a bit, then this machine is on a streak. It's going to win and win and win, and I will be rich. They use the cash machines. They'll go to them from the machine, go to the cash machine, take out their ATM card, which I could do here. I could take my ATM card out, put it in, and get so many kroner, and go back to the machine. They use check cashing services. In the United States, in casinos, they have check cashing services, and the busiest day is at the beginning of the month. That's when the unemployment checks come out. That is when the welfare checks come out. And that is the biggest day at the check cashing services. And they borrow on credit cards at the casino. Any one of these things is a severe warning sign in the gambling setting that an individual has a problem with you. Not necessarily, but it increases the probability enormously. Do any of you think of any other signs of problem play without being, quote, pathological? Problem play. Arguments with a spouse, significant other. Where have you been? They lose track of time, but the spouse knows. They have a problem. Not necessarily that they have a severe problem, but they know they have a problem. DSM-4. go over these signs. DSM-4. Preoccupation. In order to be preoccupied, I need to be thinking about gambling often, almost every day, if not every day. Think about gambling, thinking about ways of getting money to gamble, worrying about the consequences of the gambling. All of these things are evidence of preoccupation. My friends know me as a gambler. Or I remember I went to a legislator's office and his secretary received a birthday cake and it had a slot machine on it. Slot machine on the birthday cake. Now that told me something. At the very least she's preoccupied with the gambling. Loss of control. Second criterion is loss of control. And that basically means I try to control, I try to cut back on my gambling, I try to stop my gambling, I try to slow down my gambling. For example, I leave my ATM card at home. I leave my credit card at home. But then I run out of money, I go back home, I go to the bank, I get more money, and I come back. I wasn't able to control. Or I go into the play and I give my friend 500 kroner and say, don't give me this back. And I play and I play and I play and I lose. And I say, give me the 500 kroner. That's loss of control. Tolerance. Tolerance. That is indicated in 3 different ways. Well, actually, tolerance is basically the amount of time I'm spending and the amount of money I'm spending has increased. And tolerance has also, so for example, if I am, the best example I can think of is betting on say football. If I bet on one team and I bet, I don't know what the typical bet is on a football game. What is the average bet in a football game? Does anyone know? Do people bet on football? Yes. Oh, okay. I thought so.
50 kroner.
50 kroner. Okay. If I'm betting 50 kroner, and I keep betting 50 kroner, and who do I bet that 50 kroner with? A bookmaker?
State lottery.
State lottery? Plus maybe an illegal bookmaker? Plus online?
Maybe online.
Maybe online. Okay. So I bet the 50 kroner. But now I'm betting 500 kroner on a game. I bet 500 kroner on a game, and every game I bet 500 kroner. I don't want to go back to betting 50 kroner. It's boring. It's boring. Or if I'm playing a machine and I play one line, button, one line, and you're betting 5 lines, 5 ways, right? You have more tolerance than I have. You have built up more tolerance because you're actually playing 5 slot machines at the same time. When I play 5 lines, I'm really playing 5 slot machines. Because each one of those lines is independent. It's an independent bet. Or I might increase the speed at which I play. Now, in the United States, the typical slot machine runs at about once every 3 or 4 seconds. But here it's once every second and a half. You can push the button. We want to slow down the American machines because they're too fast. Non-problem gamblers could easily be playing once every 8 to 10 seconds. But they wouldn't mind. Because the object isn't to play, play, play. They haven't developed that tolerance to push the button every 1.5 seconds or every 3 seconds. Withdrawal. Withdrawal. Originally we had restlessness and irritability. I did research with Richard Rosenthal and also Mark Dickerson did some research, found that cravings are also important in terms of withdrawal. Depression can be important in terms of withdrawal. And some people who are heroin addicts, people who are heroin addicts, have severe physiological withdrawals from gambling. The most severe withdrawals I've seen have been from people who had a history of heroin and opium addiction and now are gambling, have a problem with gambling. Very, very severe, very physical in nature. Gambling to escape. Many gamblers, I can remember the first time I thought of this idea, the escape gambler, was I was interviewing a woman in 1985 or 86. And she told me that her son was in jail. Her husband worked 200 miles from home. And she was lonely. And her son called her from jail and said, "Mom, I need $500 for bail money." She was all worried about her son, so she called her mother. Her mother has been verbally abusing her all her life. She calls her mother and gets more verbal abuse from her mother. And she says, "I've got to go. I've got to go." And she goes to the casino. She's got to escape from all of the terrible thoughts that are in her mind. Another example was a woman I met in Las Vegas whose husband was a physically abusive alcoholic. He would come in at 11 o'clock at night, and she would leave and go to the 7-Eleven and play slot machines until she thought he had fallen asleep. Then she would come home. She was just escaping from that. That's the only time she gambled, was when her husband was drunk. Chasing losses. That's an attempt to get money back that I've lost. Two types of chasing. Short-term chasing and long-term chasing. And I think it's very important. That difference is very important. Short-term and long-term chasing. Short-term chasing is a desire to get even. If I started with 50 kroner and I am going up and down, up and down, up and down, I want to get my 50 kroner back. I want to win that. I want to get even. I want to break even. So I will put in more money to get my 50 kroner back. But when I go back tomorrow, let's say I lose 70 kroner that day. When I go back maybe tomorrow, it's a new day. I'm not trying to get back the 70 kroner I lost the previous day. But when I go back the second day, and I am gambling, and I say, I've got to get that 70 kroner back because I needed to pay my utilities, my gas or electric bill, then I'm chasing. I'm doing the long-term chase. And that difference is very important for the difference between, let's say, the social gambler and the problem gambler, serious problem gambler. Serious problem gamblers tend to chase in a long term as well as short term, and the serious social gambler tends to chase in the short term. Lying to cover up. The best example I can give is I received a telephone call 2 months ago from a woman in Montana. And she said that her mother has a gambling problem but lives near me. Now, Montana is 2,500 miles away. And she said her mother has a gambling problem but doesn't want to go for treatment. So, and she and her 2 brothers had let her mother borrow money. And they came to Rhode Island. One was from Montana, one was from California, and another one was from New Hampshire, all parts of the country. And came together one day on a Friday, and for 2 hours we had discussion. And then on Monday, they brought the mother in. The mother said, "I do not have a problem." And when I mentioned that her children thought that maybe there was something else wrong, maybe there's something, I don't know, either your child has a problem or you have, all 3 were lying. She fit one of the criteria for pathological gambling right away. Lying to therapists about their problem. Lying to therapists, friends, others about the gambling problem. Lying to cover up for whatever reason. Jeopardizing a relationship. Well, that woman was jeopardizing her relationship with her children. Illegal activities, or relationship, jobs, or career. People drop out of school. They lose their jobs. Illegal activity to finance gambling. I'll talk about that more tomorrow. And loans from others out of desperation. Does anybody have any questions or problems with these criteria and how they're applied? You need 5 or more to be a pathological gambler, according to the DSM, according to the American Psychiatric Association. But the research now supports 4. The research evidence actually supports 4 or more criteria. And it did, even when the American Psychiatric Association decided to make it 5. There's Richard Rosenthal and I, who were on the committee to establish the criteria, suggested 4, with 5 as a very conservative alternative, and they chose 5. These criteria, by the way, were modeled after the criteria for substance abuse. Does anybody have any questions about this whole diagnosis? Any questions at all? None? Okay. Let's compare pathological gambling with substance abuse. Well, there are some obvious similarities. Loss of control is a similarity. Preoccupation is a similarity. Negative impact on major life areas is a similarity. Tolerance is a similarity. Not the same way, but it's similar. Differences. Gambling is not self-limiting. If I snort too much cocaine, I will have a heart attack. I drink too much alcohol, I will basically die from, I'll stop breathing. There is no limit to how much money I can spend. The only limit is how long can I stay awake. That is the only limit. And how much money I have. There are fantasies of success. Think about the cocaine snorter who says, I am going to be the best cocaine snorter in the world. I'm going to be the best. I will do it. I will snort the line, and you will say, what an incredible cocaine snort. But when I say I will be the best gambler in the world, no one laughs. Because there's a possibility that that's possible. Highly not probable, but possible. That I can actually win at this. I can be a real success, and I could have nice suits and expensive, I can go on expensive vacations and maybe buy a large yacht. But not too many alcoholics and cocaine users are doing those things. But some gamblers possibly could. We don't know how many. It's probably very, 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 very few. The professional gambler is a cultural icon in the United States. It is an ideal. I don't know if it's a professional gambler is an ideal here. Is it? No. In the United States, it is an ideal that people could strive for. And so this feeds into irrational thinking. That somehow I am actually, being a professional gambler, I can make money at this. My behavior, I cannot attribute my behavior to intoxication. In fact, you can look at me and not know that I have 500 kroner on the next soccer game. You can't tell. If I drank a liter of vodka, you could tell, but not if I'm a gambler. As a result, there's more intense shame and guilt with the gambling than there is with substance abuse. The level of shame, the level of guilt is higher because they've spent money and have nothing for it. Nothing for it. Some people say there's greater denial and stronger defenses. I don't know whether that's true or not. And the outcome is unpredictable. It's unpredictable. Because I could have a compulsive gambler sit in front of me, they buy a lottery ticket and win $1 million. Problem solved? Maybe. There is no biological test, and I say yet, because there is some biological research that has been done with gamblers that shows some differences. But that research has been done primarily with males and very small samples. It's easier to hide, which I talked about. There tend to be greater financial problems. Cocaine addiction is close, but with the gambling, there tends to be greater financial problems. And the intensity of family anger is quite high, and it remains high, and the intensity of, once trust is lost, it's very, very difficult to prove that I haven't gambled. Because it's undetectable. How can I tell my spouse, my partner, that I haven't gambled? They can't believe me. Where if I say I haven't drank, sure, they can believe me because they smelled alcohol on my breath. There's less public awareness and acceptance of the problem. That's true. There's a lower level of state funding in the United States. Many states have no funding whatsoever. In Rhode Island, we have very, very small amount of funding. And in many states, gambling is a third source of revenue after income and sales taxes. For the state to turn around and make gambling illegal, they would have to say, like for example, in the state of Rhode Island, the state of Rhode Island would have to say, well, we don't need the $250 million that we're getting from gambling. It's just Rhode Island. The state of Connecticut would have to say, we don't need the $2 billion we're getting. That isn't going to happen. Prevalence rates in the United States. I'm sure you've seen these figures. This is from the National Opinion Research Center, national study in 1999. and it uses the 5 or more cutoff point. About half of the people categorized as problem gamblers here, if we use the cutoff point of 4, half of these would go up to here. Costs. I'm going to go through the costs of problem gambling. And just the way I see them, because I've seen them through Gamblers Anonymous groups and through treatment facilities. I've grouped them into 6 categories. And I use these slides when I testify before legislatures. Average amount borrowed, sold, and stolen. This was from three surveys, one conducted in Illinois, another one in Wisconsin, one in Connecticut. They're all surveys of Gamblers Anonymous members. And the one in Connecticut, about half the people in Connecticut were also in treatment. Were in treatment or in Gamblers Anonymous. These are averages. That includes people who borrowed over $1 million. Because that obviously that brings the average up. But these are quite high, these figures. Household. People who use household money, almost 90%, between 85 and 90% of people used household money to finance their gambling. Between 38 and 60% borrowed from the spouse. Between 51 and 51%, between half and 2/3 borrowed from a relative, usually a parent, a brother, sister. And between 40 and 50% sold family property to finance their gambling. In Rhode Island, when we have someone come in, the first thing we do is we send them a questionnaire. And they bring the questionnaire in with them. And one of the items on the questionnaire, which almost always changes during the course of the first interview, is how much money did you borrow? How much money have you? How many assets have you sold? We're changing our questionnaire to make it more detailed. But the average debt was $35,000. The average amount of assets sold was $33,000. Now that is. Assets included selling your retirement account, which was the most common, cashing in your retirement account and gambling with that money, cashing in your savings bonds, emptying your savings account, and combined with $66,000. Bankruptcy. 1 in 5 people that filed bankruptcy, and the average bankruptcy that they had filed for was $50,000. In Gamblers Anonymous study, between 15 and 25% of people had filed bankruptcy. And our treatment program was 20%. And NORC, that's the National Opinion Research Center study that showed approximately, I think it was 19% of people had filed bankruptcy in that study, of pathological gamblers. The children also experience enormous problems. Physical and emotional abuse in the families of gamblers is higher than it is in the general population. What you have is the general population, slightly higher is the pathological gambler, and then much higher are alcoholics. So they're about halfway between the general population and the alcoholic population in terms of physical and emotional abuse. And neglect is a serious issue among gamblers, leaving the children at home while they gamble. Serious issue. Unhappy childhood. Many of the children, Dewey Jacobs presented, maybe he had presented this information on unhappy childhood, feeling insecure, inadequate, and then also feeling depressed or suicidal. Best evidence for problems that the kids have is that they're more likely to have gambling problems. So children of problem gamblers are more likely to have gambling problems than others. They're also more likely to have drug abuse, overeating, have legal problems, and there are no studies of adult children. Still, we don't know. Research is needed. Health of the gambler is lower than it is among the general population. It's poorer. Percent saying they were in poor health range from 14% in the non-gamblers 23%, low-frequency gamblers 14%, and pathological gamblers 31%. This was in a study by the National Opinion Research Center, a national study. Not only problems among the gambler, but this is an old piece of research in 1986 done by Valerie Lorenz and Bob Yaffe. It showed that and they compared these with a controlled group of hospitalized patients. The spouses, these were all wives of male pathological gamblers because it was done then. Headaches, these are frequent persistent headaches. 41% versus 5% in the hospitalized population. Diarrhea, 37%. Asthma, 14%. Depression, almost half of the spouses of gamblers suffer from depression. And 14% was suicidal. So when you're doing intakes with the spouses, it's important to find out when the last physical exam was, and also how depressed and suicidal they are, if they are. Gambling and job loss. Two Gamblers Anonymous studies range between 21 and 36% in terms of job loss. They had lost a job, lost or quit a job. National Opinion Research Center, this was for past year. So it ranged from low-frequency gamblers, 5% had lost a job in the past year. Pathological gamblers, almost 14% had lost a job in the past year. Homelessness. There are two studies, there are about 3 studies now on homelessness that show that the rate of pathological gambling is higher among homeless than it is in the general population. Correlates, we'll get more into these tomorrow. Increased medical health problems, depression. About 2/3 of problem gamblers will come in with diagnosable major depressive disorder or depressive disorder not otherwise specified. Family problems, divorce, domestic violence. That's based on very little research, the domestic violence. Alcohol, drug dependence. Bankruptcy rates are high, criminal activity, and suicide. What about assessing problem gamblers to have? Sheila Bloom and I developed the Southos gambling screen. That's one of the assessment instruments that's used. It's the most widely used. That and the DSM are the two most widely used assessment instruments. The diagnostic criteria, and also I use impulse control disorder, NOS, because we have to give a diagnosis to every one of our patients. A problem gambler who doesn't reach the pathological, I give them impulse control disorder, not otherwise specified. And also I will have them read the Gamblers Anonymous 20 questions. The Southos gambling screen, we give them in the questionnaire that's mailed to them. And we ask about past 6 months, about the gambling problem in the past 6 months, not a lifetime measure, 6 months. Is anyone here not familiar with the Southos gambling screen? Everyone here is. Quick. A little bit on how it was developed. There were 1,616 subjects involved in the study when it was developed. 867 of them were chemical dependency and pathological gambling patients combined. This was at South Oaks Hospital. We also did study 213 Gamblers Anonymous members, deliberately oversampling females, because there were very few females in Gamblers Anonymous at the time, or in treatment, because this was before the development of the video slot machine. I also did a controlled study of university students and hospital employees. Started out with a 60-item pool and reduced it down to 20 items. Okay. There was a developmental and validation sample, and then there was a cross-validation sample, and there were also reliability samples. When I compared the South Oaks gambling screen with independent counselor assessment, was very highly correlated. Less highly correlated with family member assessment. And it was almost the same as the DSM-3R criteria. 0.92. 1 month test, retest reliability was 0.71. Now, the SOGS has been used in a lot of different ways. Many times been misused. But it's been validated by many researchers. And the past year and past 6-month versions of the South Oaks gambling screen have been validated with the validity of roughly the same as the lifetime measure. So you can use the most appropriate use in treatment settings is a 6-month measure. It's been translated now into 36 languages, and it's on the internet all over the place. And it has been criticized for use in epidemiological studies. Now, the criticism has been based on a purpose for which it was never intended when it was developed. For detecting, quote, problem gamblers who are subclinical versus clinical pathological gamblers. That's really where the South Oaks gambling screen does not do as well. But its most valuable use is in screening large populations and in clinical assessment. And it's also useful to determine severity. It turns out that the South Oaks gambling screen is a much better measure of severity of problem than the DSM-4. For example, the study that looked at the dollar amounts lost. If we look at the South Oaks gambling screen scores, if South Oaks gambling screen scored from 5 to 9, that's the blue here, the amount of money lost in the lifetime is significantly lower than for people with 10 or higher. The amount of debt is lower than people with 10 or higher. And the amount of money stolen is significantly higher for those people with 10 or higher on the South Oaks gambling screen. That's financial. Then job-related impact is also significantly higher for the South Oaks gambling screen score of 10 or higher. Notice the job impact is, for example, losing a job or missing time is just incredibly different. The number of hours missed per month is slightly higher, and the amount of money stolen is obviously higher. From work, stolen from work. Percentage of people who stole from work. 43% stole from work compared with 12% who had a score of 5 to 9. And suicidal ideation is significantly higher. So when you see a high SOG score, then it's very, very important to double check for suicidal thoughts. 85% of the people with a SOG score of 10 or more wanted to die, versus 44% with a lower SOG score. 76% had contemplated suicide, compared with 44% with a 5 to 9 SOG score. 49% had planned suicide, compared with 25%. 19% had attempted, versus 6% for the SOGs of 5 to 9. The studies that I cited were studies of Gamblers Anonymous members, and most of the Gamblers Anonymous members have Southwest gambling screen scores like 10 to 12, 15. There are some clinical barriers to using the Southwest gambling screen. One is staff non-compliance. The staff may think that the gambling is not consequential. Maybe they gamble themselves. Or maybe they've been in the grocery store and have never noticed the machines. They may see lottery ticket purchases as not even possible to be a problem with lottery ticket purchases. To a certain extent that's true, except when we get to the scratch tickets. Then we have a paper slot machine. They also think that clients don't gamble that much. They think it's too much work to screen, even though it takes less than 5 minutes. Waiting room. The biggest problem is they don't know what to do with the gambler once they have them in front of them. And if they think they know, there's no supervision available. There's no systematic setup for providing supervision to people who are treating gamblers in many areas. Those are the main clinical barriers. Another instrument this is used actually in epidemiological research or national population studies. The National Opinion Research Center's gambling screen is the NODS. And that's based on the DSM-4. It's been used in numerous national surveys, and it's in use in some treatment facilities. However, it has only been partially validated. And the validation, actually the Southwest gambling screen has been validated much more extensively than the NODS or any other measure of DSM. And more recent evidence, like I mentioned before, points to a score of 4 or more as indication of a serious problem, rather than 5. Gamblers Anonymous 20 questions. It's been used since 1957. And it's available on many websites. I'll give you one of the websites, 800gambler.org. And it's been recently validated against both the Southwest gambling screen and the DSM-4. And the cutoff point of 7 or more is perfect. It's like Gamblers Anonymous in 1957 somehow devised this 7 or more criteria, 7 or more answers, 7 or more. And when I give the Gamblers Anonymous 20 questions to my patients, they're scoring 15, 14, 12, 18. And they're shocked. They're just shocked that their problem could be that serious. Or somebody says, well, the only one that I didn't answer yes to was stealing. They've answered yes to all the others. They're just shocked. Many of them are shocked. Or especially the ones who are really not sure that they have a problem or not. And in that first session, when I give them this Gamblers Anonymous 20 questions, they just it actually reduces denial and minimization. I'm going to take a break.